Hello, everybody, and welcome to Auto Talk with Jake, a new podcast. This is our first episode. Congratulations. This podcast is going to be primarily about talking about cars, the auto industry, my personal opinions on certain cars, and answering your questions for those who are new to the car hobby. This first episode, we will be talking about the new C8 Corvette that was unveiled recently on, July 18th? First of all, I did see the live stream. It's really cool. Nice having all the astronauts and all the space comparisons. Chevy does seem to be likening the launch of the new mid-engine Corvette with the type of technology that brought us to the moon, the innovation, the ability to do stuff differently in order to get a perfect goal. And that's pretty much what this car is about. It's a radical departure from what the Corvette has traditionally been. Traditionally, the Corvette has always been a front-engine, rear-wheel drive, traditionally with a manual as well, that competed back in the day against some of the fastest cars in the world. Now, over time, of course, the Corvette has lost its luster a bit, and as a result, the Corvette has become a more, let's just face it, it's a kind of an embarrassment compared to other European cars. And with the C7 Corvette, the most recent generation, they pretty much exhausted all that they could do with a front-engine, rear-wheel drive format. And so, now they have created the C8 Corvette, which has a mid-engine, rear-wheel drive format, which should help a lot with cornering and track use. If you're not sure as to why this is the preferred option for track use, for those of you who are new to the car industry and the car hobby, essentially having the engine in the back creates a more even weight distribution between the wheels. And in some cases, you can even get a 50-50 weight distribution, which means that no matter how fast a car is going, the center of gravity will always be in the middle, which means that the outsides of the cars, either the front or the back, won't skid out to one side or the other. Usually, if there's a rear bias, i.e. there's more weight in the back, the rear wheels tend to slip out. Whereas if you have a lot of weight in the front, it tends to understeer, as in the front of the car, the car itself just won't steer as hard into a corner as it usually would. With a mid-engine layout, you have the center of gravity more towards the center, which means that you have a lot less of a chance for either understeer or oversteer, and creating a more balanced car. So, we are going to be comparing the C8 Corvette with a bunch of other cars from mostly from Europe, which is what this car is really trying to compete against. A few of them from Japan, but that's the thing, there really isn't any American car that can compete with this thing. The C8 Corvette is kind of in a league of its own, at least here in the US. So we're going to be going over certain specs, pricing, and just overall how it compares to other European cars of similar price. First of all, let's talk about the big headline here. The C8 Corvette is going to be a mid-engined sports car. I hesitate to call it a supercar yet, starting at under $60,000. Now, if you're new to the car industry, this is huge. I mean, we'll get into performance numbers in a second, but that basically means that this car is a huge bargain. So let's get into the specs. The engine itself, Chevy is calling the LT2. It's a 6.2 liter naturally aspirated V8 that is essentially derived from the same engine block and platform as the LS, which has been around since, gosh, probably the mid 90s. It's going to have 495 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque, which really, I mean, compared to other sports cars, is pretty similar numbers. Maybe not as much as certain other cars, but we'll get to that in a second. As far as performance numbers, Chevy has unveiled that with the Z51 package, which is basically the top performance package for the C8 Corvette, it will be able to do a 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. The top speed is rumored to be over 200 miles per hour, very comparable to even supercars. The transmission, which has garnered some controversy for not coming equipped with even a manual option, is only an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic from Tremec. Comparing this to other cars, I've created a list of various other cars, and as we go through the specs, we'll basically say, how they compare. First on the list, I have the Jaguar F-Type R, which starts at $101,800, so about 40 grand more than the starting price of the C8 Corvette. It has a 5-liter V8, making 550 horsepower. And as far as performance numbers, it can do 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds with a top speed of 200 miles per hour, and it too also has an 8-speed auto. So you're basically saying that I'm basically saying that this car, the Jaguar F-Type R, has a little more horsepower, but it has a slower 0 to 60 and the same top speed for $40,000 more. And it's good to point out that the Jaguar F-Type R is front engine rear wheel drive. Yeah. This is a great example of the type of disruption that this new C8 Corvette is going to do to the auto industry. I mean, 40 grand more for something that can not really keep up? Why would anybody want to get a Jaguar F-Type R? Doesn't make much sense. A car that really doesn't make sense is the Acura NSX. Because even today, the Acura NSX starts at $157,400, which is absolutely absurd when you start to look at the performance numbers here. The engine is a 3.5 liter V6 with a hybrid system, which produces 573 horsepower and 476 pound-feet of torque. The performance isn't too shabby, 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds with a top speed of 191 miles per hour, and its transmission is a 9-speed dual clutch. So you're telling me that a car that costs almost $100,000 more than the C8 Corvette can barely do better as far as acceleration and worse as far as top speed? Why would anybody want an NSX? I mean, yeah, it's a hybrid. You might get better gas mileage, but let's be honest, nobody's buying a sports car for gas mileage. I mean, let's just be frank here. The next car on the list is the Porsche 911 Carrera S. I am an absolute fan of Porsche. I love Porsche. I love the 911, and I love the new 911. However, when you start to compare it with something like the C8 Corvette, it does start to look a little lackluster. So the Carrera S starts at $113,300. It has a 3-liter turbocharged Boxster engine, which produces 443 horsepower, 368 pound-feet of torque, and its performance numbers show a 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds and a top speed of 190 miles per hour. The Carrera S comes with a 6-speed manual or the 7-speed PDK, which is basically a dual clutch gearbox. All the performance numbers that I've given you are the ones with the PDK. I mean, again, you're asking $50,000 more for something that has less power and worse performance numbers. I mean, I love 911s as good as the next guy. I wish I could own one. The driving experience of a 911 is fantastic, but if you're looking at pure performance numbers, it just doesn't cut it. The next car, which I think is really going to hurt its sales, is the Toyota Supra. The C8 Corvette, I think, is going to absolutely destroy the Supra. Let's get into some numbers. The Supra is going to have a base price of $49,990, but you could spec them up to close to $60,000, and there have already been reports that the Supra is going to have dealer markups as high as possibly 10 to 20%, which is absolutely ridiculous. And it's probably going to change once the C8 Corvette comes out, I'm sure. The engine is a turbocharged 3-liter inline-6 from BMW, which produces 335 horsepower, 365 pound-feet of torque, with performance numbers showing a 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds and a top speed of 155 miles per hour, which is electronically limited. And it has an 8-speed traditional torque converter automatic. Almost every stat that the Toyota Supra has is worse than the C8 Corvette. I mean, to reiterate, the C8 Corvette has a 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds with the Z51 package, which I highly doubt is going to be more than 10 grand more than starting price. The Supra, even with the special GR stuff on it, can only do a 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds. That's huge. Top speed of only 155 miles per hour? I mean, again, it just shows how very short-sighted the Supra truly is. Granted, it has the BMW DNA all throughout it, but, I mean, let's be honest, if you're going out and you're trying to get a sports car, and you're looking and it's like, well, there's a Supra that's dealer marked up for a little more than 60 grand, and here's a C8 Corvette around the same price, which has better performance numbers, and to be honest, looks better. Which one are you going to pick? The C8 is just more exotic because of that mid-engine layout. It's more appealing, it's more modern, it's more stylish. Moving on, we have the AMG GTR, which starts at $162,900, which is well over $100,000 more than the C8 Corvette. It is a front-engine, 4-liter twin-turbo V8 producing 577 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque, performance of 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds, and a top speed of 197 miles per hour. It also has a 7-speed dual clutch. I mean, it's crazy. $100,000 more for a little more power, not going to lie, but a less powerful 0 to 60 and a less powerful top speed? What's the point? Yeah, you're getting Mercedes technology and quality, but it's still a front-engine rear-wheel drive sports car. What's the point of getting an AMG GTR? Moving on. We have the Lamborghini Huracan Evo, which is essentially the base model Huracan, with a base starting price of $261,274, $200,000 more than the estimated starting price of a C8 Corvette. However, with that, you get a 5.2-liter V10 producing 630 horsepower, 442 pound-feet of torque, with performance numbers showing a 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds and a top speed of 201 miles per hour with a 7-speed dual clutch. Again, does it have greater horsepower? Yes. But performance numbers are almost exactly the same. And again, assuming that the Z51 package is not more than 10 grand over starting price for the C8 Corvette, it's still a huge price difference. They're both mid-engine. I mean, granted, you're not getting the pizzazz and badge engineering that goes behind a Lamborghini Huracan, but at the same time, you kind of have to ask yourself, well, is that badge worth it? Considering that you're spending almost $200,000 more. And finally, the highest priced vehicle on this list, the Ferrari F8 Tributo, which was just recently unveiled. The price for it is estimated at $350,000. It has the 3.9 liter twin turbo V8 making 710 horsepower, 565 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, and a top speed of 211 miles per hour with a 7-speed dual clutch. Again, similar to the Huracan Evo, yeah, it has more horsepower, yeah, it has more torque, but still 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds? Yeah, that's less than 3. Top speed of 211 miles per hour? Yeah, that's good, but is it $300,000 more good? And again, similar to the Lamborghini, a lot of people pay for the badge. They pay for the exclusivity of owning a Ferrari, the buying experience, the looks that you get when driving it. But again, with the Corvette, it's not a bad looking car. It looks exotic. It looks new. It looks crazy. It's moving while standing still. So what does this comparison show us? Well, I think if my commentary didn't show any better, that there is nothing that competes with the price for performance that this car has. The C8 Corvette is the best car that you can get for the money for performance. There is nothing on this list that comes close. Maybe the 911 Carrera S, but even that, again, still has worse performance numbers. And it's 40 grand more. 50 grand more, actually. The Supra, I mean, maybe. But even then, the performance numbers are just not adding up. The Jaguar F-Type R, I mean, 40 grand more for something that has less power, or just a little more power, I should say, but with worse performance? What's the point? I think GM has created an absolute destroyer of worlds here. I mean, you can't get anything better. And the thing about it is, too, if you look, the engine, the LT2, is based on the LT1, which came from the new ZR1 Corvette from the C7, which has over 760 horsepower. Which tells me that if it's the same platform, basically the same engine, just configured into a mid-engine layout, there is no reason why GM can't make a C8 Corvette later down the line, possibly a Z06 package or another ZR1 that has over 700 horsepower. And in that case, it would be competing directly with Ferrari. The Ferrari F8 Tributo has 710 horsepower. And I can't even imagine, since the LT2, which only has 495 horsepower, is already competing with the Ferrari as far as 0 to 60 and top speed, how much an extra, 300 horsepower would do? Almost double? It's a beast. It's an absolute beast. These companies, I've got a feeling, man. I think Porsche, Lamborghini, Ferrari, to a certain extent, certainly Jaguar and Mercedes, are sweating right now. Acura, I mean, I don't even know what Acura is doing right now. The NSX, if you don't know, the NSX basically is one of the worst performance for price vehicles that you can get right now. $157,000. I mean, it's crazy, and the aftermarket has certainly shown that that is a crazy valuation. I mean, you can get a 2017 NSX for $120,000 now, and even that seems too high. The Toyota Supra, I feel sad because the Toyota Supra had kind of a bright future. It was like, oh, well, at least they're bringing it back. They could possibly make it better in the future, but with this new C8 Corvette, why would anybody get one? You know, it's one thing to have a car model or a brand that's been around forever that has the fan base to really carry it through something like this. But the Supra hasn't been around for almost 20 years. And there are a lot of diehard Supra fans, but they're not as big of a fan of this new one because of all the BMW stuff that's in it. It's not a true Toyota. I don't know what the future of this car truly is. Comparing it to the BMW Z4, at least the Z4 has that BMW audience that's gonna eat it up because that's what BMW fans do. But the Supra, I don't know. The fact that they're already, I feel terrible for somebody who got a starter edition or a launch edition Toyota Supra because dealers marked them up like crazy. People are paying almost $70,000 for a launch edition Supra that's going to be worth maybe $50,000 by the end of the year. It's crazy. I don't quite understand it. Now, with Lamborghini and Ferrari, they're probably just going to sit back and relax. I mean, they have their badge, they have their branding. Nothing can really take that away from them. But I could see some car collectors, possibly people who don't know too much about cars, looking at numbers and being like, well, why wouldn't I go for the C8 instead of a Ferrari? I'm not paying $300,000 more. I'm not paying $200,000 more for a Lamborghini. And so that might be a real thing. Jaguar, I mean, the F-Type's been around for a long time now. It's an aging platform. And so you can see why it doesn't really compare very well to the new stuff. But what is Jaguar going to do about it? Are they going to come out with a new platform for the F-Type or make something new, a new XK or something? Who knows? The AMG GTR. I remember when it came out, it was the beast of the Nürburgring, the beast of Green Hell, it was called. It absolutely demolished anything on the track. But now, a few years later, we've got this new C8 Corvette, which can do very similar numbers for almost, probably even actually more than half the price. $162,900 for the AMG GTR versus, you know, if you get the Z51 package on the C8, probably looking at a little over $70,000. It's crazy. But this is what American cars should be. This is the differentiating factor here. If you're new to the car industry, each brand, each nationality of car brand has certain stereotypes associated with it. The Germans are really good at making high quality vehicles that perform really well and are engineered fairly well. Thing about it is, though, they usually tend to be not very reliable in the long run, and parts can be quite expensive. The Japanese, on the other hand, are known for quality as well, but quality in other ways, mostly in terms of reliability. The Italians are known for their stunning designs, but as far as reliability and other engineering, not so much. And so, where does that leave America? And for the longest time, the American car identity has been quite muddied. It used to be American cars were the largest, best quality built cars in the world. But then, once the European rivals and the Japanese rivals started to come in, they just couldn't compete. And so they've kind of wallowed in themselves a little bit. GM, Ford, Chrysler, they've all become shadows of what they used to be. But in recent years, they've started to gain a new identity. The Ford GT, for example, is a great example of what happens when Ford puts its best engineers together and creates a true performance car, a race car for the road. The C8 Corvette is an example of what GM does when it takes all of its engineers and tells them to go wild and create the best Corvette they can. And so America is now going back to the olden days of having the best price for what you get. At least as far as performance cars goes. Passenger cars, well, we'll see, but at least with these new sports and supercars, America is starting to show that, hey, you can get similar numbers. You can get better numbers with us, with similar quality for less money. Back to the way it used to be. And that's the thing, too. If you look at the C8 Corvette's interior and build quality, it looks really good. Granted, these are pre-production models that we've gotten photos of, but the leather, the materials, it doesn't feel like GM at all. It feels like something from a Japanese company or even a European one. The seats look immaculate. The steering wheel looks exotic. Looks like it came straight out of a Le Mans car. The customization that you can do on a C8 Corvette is truly impressive. There are tons of different colors that you can choose from. I've got a configurator up here. And as far as paint colors go, we have black, Arctic white, blade silver metallic, ceramic matrix gray metallic, shadow gray metallic, Elkhart Lake blue metallic, Zeus bronze metallic, Long Beach red metallic tint coat, torch red, Sebring orange, accelerate yellow, rapid blue. I mean, we're talking 12 different color options here. Pretty crazy. As well as different roof options. You can get a body colored roof, transparent roof, or visible carbon fiber roof. We got 6 different wheel options, 4 different brake caliper looks, tons of exterior accent accessories, carbon fiber flashes, body color flashes, different badge options, different spoiler options, different front spoiler options. I mean, you can even change the color of the engine cover. You can have it be black, red, silver, or have the engine appearance package, which adds some bright work. You can add racing stripes. You can add fender stripes. There's different trim levels. There's the 1LT, the 2LT, the 3LT. And I mean, I wish I could show pictures on podcasts, but it's absolutely stunning. The different kinds of leather colors. I mean, we got different kinds of contrast stitching. You've got red leathers, natural leathers, blue leathers, another type of red leathers, gray leather. Also with different types of stitching options. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. You can even change the type of cover that's on the seats. You can have it be leather, suede, or a performance textile. You can do two-tone. You can do different colors of seat belts. There's 6 different options. I mean, the amount of customization that this car offers is very similar to that of Lamborghini and Ferrari. And in that way, it competes very well. GM pulled out all the stops with this car. It's fantastic. If I had the money and I was looking for a new sports car for under $70,000, I would totally get one. Even if I was looking for a sports car that was where I had a budget of under $120,000, I would still get one. I would customize it the way I wanted. There's no excuse anymore. This car is stepping on a lot of big players' toes, and GM knows that. Chevy knows that. And we'll see what the response is from all these other automakers. We'll see. Very curious. Hopefully it means that we'll be getting some better performance vehicles for the money. I think it's quite ridiculous that we have a lot of sports cars that are just way out of price range for most people. The Corvette has shown that you can make a sports car for the people. that the average person can afford. I mean, granted, $60,000 is a lot of money for most people, but it's attainable. It's something that if you work hard enough, no matter what job, if you work for a long enough time, you could possibly get one. Whereas, for example, the Acura NSX at $157,400 is just way out of range. Same thing with the AMG GTR. So in conclusion, it's a fantastic car. If you're looking to buy a fun, sporty car for good money, this is the car to get. It outclasses anything near it. It even outclasses the new Mustang GT500, which itself is a great price per performance car. This car is fantastic. If you guys would like to see more of the Auto Talk podcast with Jake, let me know. I'd like to do some Q&As eventually, and I'll be sharing my opinion on more cars in the future. This podcast is going to be a combination of both talking about cars like this, when they're unveiled, different things about the industry, my opinion on where the industry is going, electric cars, hybrid cars, anything about cars that you can think of, I will be talking about. So, I'll see you next time.